Okay. Informal meeting for May 12th, 2025. Copies of draft minutes of April 7th, 15th, 22nd, and 30th meetings have been posted on the city website. Copies of committee reports have been posted on the city website. We have various communications. I don't know if you've had a chance to read the audit. Maybe we'll ask Heather about that when time comes. In the meantime, let's go right to our fire report. If he gets off the phone. That's okay.
The Flag Day parade.
Oh.
So that was a concern of mother that we're trying to help out because it's happening loose on Brush Street that starts at 5 o'clock.
Right.
Parade starts at 4, so they're very concerned about getting everybody to and from the pad. Sounds like it's pretty big already, so. Fire department report for the month of April, we had 29 total calls. 3 were fires. One was a kitchen fire, one was a vehicle fire, and one was a grass brush fire. We had one boat issue that we use our new boat for. I'll touch on that in a minute. Another boat call and 5 vehicle accidents. We had 1 power line down, a good and tech call, and 17 alarm activations for different things, for a total of 29. As you probably heard, our new boat is in service. It is in the Hudson River. It's being docked at the Hudson Power Boat Association. Right down front, if you go down to the boat launch, it's right by the flagpole, where everybody can take a look at it. The first call we got the boat delivered to us, and then that Friday night, we got called to assist the Greenport Fire Department. The boat wasn't actually in service yet, but we needed it. This was for an incident at the Rick Van Winkle Bridge, and we used it. We used it for 3.5 hours that night, and then we went back out the next day to assist the state police with the search efforts as well. And then we were out training with it following week, and we got flagged down by boaters whose boat had broken down just north of the Rick Van Winkle Bridge, and we were able to hook them up to our boat, tow them to the Hudson boat launch so they could get it back to on their trailer. So far, we've used it, and it's only been in the water for 3 weeks. We've gotten multiple guys trained, and right now it's fully in service, and we've been out on it multiple times training and utilizing it. So far, so good.
Great.
Other than that, I don't think we have much. Our new rescue tools that were approved 2 months ago. This is with the new truck and stuff like that. They were delivered last Monday, and they were put in service on the engine on Tuesday. So they're all ready to go. And we're minimally using our rescue truck that is going to be sold here in the next couple months.
Excellent.
Waiting for our new one to come in next year. So I don't know.
Thank you. Council members, any questions? Public? Great, Lloyd.
Always a pleasure to see you.
Likewise.
So I was just wondering if that power line down had anything to do with power outage just yesterday online?
No, this was for April.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, but the one yesterday, the power outage, we don't know if it was caused here or if it was a surge. We did have a call down the street where we found a piece of an electrical component on a telephone pole was blown apart.
What was that?
First and Cherry Alley.
Very loud.
We don't know if that was the cause of the power outage or if that was an over, a reaction to a bigger problem.
Gotcha. Okay,
Turn it over to National Grid and we left.
thank you.
Well,
Anyone else?
Will the boat be back there the whole season?
yes.
Anyone else? Thank you, Nick. Excuse me 1 second. I'm just trying to find out why this owl isn't picking up. Okay, next is the youth report. And I believe we have Liz York here. Let me Youth Department monthly report. Here we go. Give it a second, please. And boom, okay. There's in Spanish.
Our staff training for our new hires. They happen the week. We still have openings for Oakdale camp, so if you have a kid or know if you have kids looking for some summer activities, please let me know that our registration is still open. And another area of transition for the department right now is in the role of you've all heard that I'll be stepping down from the role of director at the end of the school year. Calvin Lewis will be stepping in as the interim director. The city does have to do an official search, so they'll be searching. And then hopefully they'll be able to finalize that position relatively quickly. Either way, the department is prepared really well for summer camp. And Calvin's going to do a great job. Make sure that everything's moving forward and the department does well, so. See. For me, it's been an honor to be a part of the department. I think it's a very impactful and important department in the city. Kind of listed out all the things that we do. It's been great to witness the joy and appreciation from the families we serve, whether it's through our sports programs, our after-school programs, our summer camp, or additional field trips. It's been great to see the diverse amount of people enjoying access to the swimming area at Oakdale Beach, walking the beautiful trails of Oakdale, or participating on our bike co-op. It's been great to watch the staff grow from new workforce children to confident young employees that are moving on to bigger and better things or moving through the department into higher positions. And it's been great to watch the families and the kids that come back year after year participating in the programs grow and develop into their personalities. An honor to witness that. So again, it's been an honor. I appreciate it. It's a really special thing that the city offers, and I know it's in good hands. So after school, we're still.
Okay, here we go.
Spring's here, so we're getting outside for a lot more things. The kids over at the church, the kindergarten for second graders have gotten to step outside, do a lot more of their activities outside. It's really, being outside is good for everyone, so. They've really been enjoying that. At the youth center, we continue to be busy. We're getting back outside too, with skateboarding, taking trips to the park, it's gonna be nice. The kids are really enjoying the activities of Sylvia Center and circus every week, and we started to really add diversity to the gym activities. They did badminton this month, and they really enjoyed that. So we're excited to see what's coming and looking forward to the end of the school year so we can get going in the summer program. For teen programming, slam poetry and breakdancing has ended. The kids really enjoyed themselves. It was a success. I think that the kids that did it are going to spread the word about how much fun they had, so we can hopefully bring in similar programming and continue with that. It was a really great opportunity to see the kids express themselves in multiple ways. We also took the teens to the Knicks Cavs game that I reported on. They really enjoyed that. We've got a couple of photos. It was a really great experience, and just watching a game like that for the kids. This community basketball is such a huge thing, so to get to go down and do that was really great. Numbers for registration, the only number that increased was the K through 2, everything else stayed pretty steady. We did have 1 full week off, so the numbers are a little low because we had spring break this month. A lot is happening over at Oakdale. As I mentioned last time, Green Acres was coming in to do some work. They hired some local teams. They went in, they removed a lot of invasive species from that area. You'll also notice if we walk in the back of Oakdale that there's a fence now. That fence is protecting the native plants that were planted to replace this base to revitalize the forest. We've done a lot of plantings in my 4 years and they inevitably either get eaten or trampled by the wildlife. So this fence is an attempt to make sure that it sustains this time and they can get a little bit bigger before we take the fence down. But it shouldn't be an issue because it's off trail. We always want to stay on trail there so that the wilderness has their space and we have ours. And there's some photos of that work that was being done. And I close up the sign on the fence. If you see that, that's back there. There is a camera on it right now it is notified that there is a recording. So we also had some volunteers from Walmart come out on Earth Day. They helped us take the trees that were invasive trees that were cut and mulch and spread out on the trails. As everybody knows who walk there, they get really wet and gross in spring. And so that was really helpful. And some upcoming events that we have are that this Friday, the Capital Region, the United Way of the Greater Capital Region Food Bank will be coming to do a 518 day with us on Friday. It'll be at Oakdale. They'll be doing a lot of different tasks. They'll be cleaning up the beach to prepare for the opening of that, working on the trails, helping to maintain that, and cleaning up the basketball courts. We also have our water quality report, which I hope a lot of people will go to. It is on the 20th of this month. It is at Spark. It's a culmination of years of research and volunteer work. It's going to talk about everything that we've learned, the quality of the water, how we're doing prevention, and how we're just helping to maintain that water and help it thrive when the big's coming. We are also still looking for a giver for the season at Oakdale Park. We want to be back in the trails, that kind of thing. The hours are flexible. Applicants have a lot of freedom to work on their own as long as everything gets done. They can call us 518-828-0017 if they're interested, or someone's interested, or if you're looking for part-time work. And registration for swimming lessons was supposed to open today. We had a lot of internet problems. We're upgrading to fiber optics or whatever happening. So we weren't able to get it up, but the registration is ready. It should go out this week. We're doing community, anybody in the community in the greater area can sign up. And then there's a separate one for campers to sign up as well. So that'll be accessible on our website and on our social media.
Thank you, Liz. Council members, any questions? Excuse me, council members go first. That's all right. Council members? Yes.
Also, what is the deadline for registration?
For years. We're trying to have it closed by the end of the month. End of the month, maybe.
Is that it? I'm sorry, Anna, would you like to ask your question? Anyone else? Oh, Maya? Lloyd?
After something about Friday.
That's the 518 day was I can't remember what it is, but you can comment on it.
That's one.
Yeah. Anybody welcome to stop by.
Is that it? Okay, thank you, Liz. Oh,
think we heard that the exit is not blocked. The way that we sit to one side. and
Oh, okay,
It's a fire.
sure. So please don't block the exit. You can put some more chairs over here if you want. Oh, here we go. Thank you over there. Police report, Lieutenant Miller. Oh, sorry. Oh, my God.
Right, good evening all. It's Captain Dave Miller, City of Hudson Police. Chief is out on vacation, so I'm just gonna do her reports for her. You guys have already sent the HPD Section 9 report for April. I'm just gonna recap it real quick. We had 0 use of forces. We made 19 arrests with 50 total charges. Charges and arrests are listed in the report. We had 10 emotional disturbed person calls. And we had 1 overdose call. Narcan was administered and the subject, the victim, was okay and didn't die. It was the police happened to drive by and see the subject lying slumped down. So who's to know what would have happened if they didn't, come administer that, because they ended up going to CMH. It was on Green Street. It was when it was during April, while the warming shelter was open and they were cruising around the parking lot just to make, sure things were good, and they happened to see somebody kind of lying there slumped over. They tried to wake him and he wouldn't wake up and unresponsive, so they hit him with a couple doses of the Narcan. He came to. The HPD body worn camera report for April, there's nothing really to report. Everything seemed normal, nothing out of the ordinary. The end of March, I don't know if the chief mentioned, we did we did hire 2 new officers Tanner Race and Brandon Scally. We also had, I don't know if you guys remember, you did the resolution for the air conditioners.
Mhm.
What a difference. So the ones we had were piecemeal, garbage for a lack of any better terms, and this is great. These things are working awesome and keeping our data room nice. So thank you for that. I want to give you a couple updates on stuff. It might be on our HPD Facebook already, but I'm just going to kind of go over it anyway. So I don't know if you guys heard or not, in the county, we had a couple serious incidents with the airplane crashing, what happened there. And then we had a major accident, which there was a fatal. But, which that's terrible, but we sometimes forget about the people that respond to that, the police and the firefighters. So just so you guys know, our comfort dog, our therapy dog, K9, with Sergeant Nealon went out to these firehouses and with the dog, and it helped so many people, the positive feedback we had, just so you know that it seemed like it made a difference, the letters and responses and emails. Just a couple things for April I wanted to know. Sergeant Hodges helped the Sheriff's Department and State Police with a call at the Rip Van Winkle Bridge. There was a subject on there, and we were able to get there pretty fast because we're close to there, and we were able to help stop this subject from, he admitted he wanted to jump off the bridge, and we were able to get there on time with the other units, and the sergeant was able to help with that. So we thought that was a pretty big deal. Also, on April 28th, Sergeant Beelman was out in the area of Bopake when a domestic call came in with a stabbing with a knife. And he was one of the first ones there to be able to make sure that the victim was getting treated and that the scene was safe and secure. And he happened to be out there, and when they pulled the call over the air, he was able to respond, even though this is some stuff out of our jurisdiction, but you know, a team effort, we were able to do that and help with these things. There was also another thing, Nathan, which was a weird, kind of weird, I haven't seen in 25 years. Lieutenant Kaiser was driving his car and we got a poll for a suicidal subject. And when he put on his lights to help the state police, you know, to make sure that, you know, nothing bad happened. A subject in front of them in their car must have thought we were going after them, but we weren't. We were going to this emergency call. And they threw out a loaded handgun. Which, I mean, sometimes you see it on the YouTube while you're chasing them and they're like throwing out stuff, but this was absolutely unrelated. And the officer happened to see it. And we had our units go down and we were able to recover a loaded handgun that they should not have had, and they got felony charges for that. It's pretty serious. So that was of interest, I thought. Also on our Facebook, if you guys have our Facebook page, I thought there was really good articles on there attached with Chief Franklin. It's like how would you say, a bio of her life and what she's doing. So it's something you should definitely read. There's some stuff I didn't even know, and I worked with her for 23 years, so I thought that was good. And there was an article from Main Street Magazine about K9 and Sergeant, so I thought that was nice as well. So if you have time, please read them. It's good stuff. That's about all I have. I wanted Lieutenant Pirro to speak on a call he had this weekend, which I think you guys would probably think is a little interesting. This is something I've never seen here in the city of Hudson. He can explain more. And then there was an update with the CAD system. All right.
So, yeah, interesting call this weekend that Captain wanted me to touch on. I don't know if anybody's ever seen To Catch a Predator TV shows. Well, the other day we received a call from somebody who was watching YouTube, who was live streaming in the city of Hudson. Under the same kind of circumstances, patrol guys were able to go down to the train station and catch this person. So it was hit home was close. 20 years, I've never seen anything like that. I don't think the captain's seen anything like that in his 25 years here. But we were able to catch the suspect. The investigation is ongoing and arrests pending prior further investigation and discussions. But just very weird and unusual circumstance that happened here in Hudson. Somebody that was literally watching it live on YouTube called, and they don't even live in the city. So, and the guy that was doing it, was filming it, was actually out of the Bronx. It's this activist group. He's been doing it himself for 5 years now, and has gotten over 100 people with it. And he turns everything over. He was very cooperative. He turned everything over to us. So very unusual, and should have more updates on that, as the time goes. There's no threat to the public this time. The guys got no means of communication anymore. His phone and computer as evidence. And then there's also a resolution tonight you'll see in regards to our CAD. It's an agreement between the Hudson Police Department, the city, and Columbia County and the 911 Center. It's for use of their CAD system, their computer aided dispatch. It's going to integrate with our new RMS system, our records management. They're giving us the CAD system, which is already up and running in the county, free of charge to us. So this is just an agreement with them to go ahead and do that. It's going to be a huge benefit to us and the county, working together, transferring calls, being able to see where other units are, and all of the stuff that we've gotten for our RMS is all integrated with the CAD. So pretty straightforward, and we thank the county for allowing us to jump onto that. That saved us probably close to $200,000 for that portion of the system. So we're gonna go from handwriting everything that we currently do in our dispatch center to all computerized,
Nice.
records, time stamps, time logged. So it's gonna be a huge bump, and it's a huge savings for the city. So again, I think, the county, Kevin Johnson and, retired, Lopez, who just retired from the 911 Center, for allowing us and getting the ball rolling.
Great. Thank you.
So I wanted to mention, we are hiring a third officer. We're supposed to be hiring a third one, by the end of May, Tristan Skimhorn. Just so you know. That's it.
Thank you. I
Yeah,
assume
we
you,
must be, yeah,
Yeah.
the budget, I think we're budgeted, well, we can have up to 26, and I think the 25 budgeted up to 23, and we're not
Yes.
there yet.
One replacing whatever.
Right, we had,
So you're not gonna be over budget?
no, this will give us 23.
All the spots are replacing people that have left prior that were in our budget. That was approved. It's,
So after this 3 hires, I'm gonna have more.
But I think at that point, I think we're good at that point for now, unless something, I mean, ideally, we would like to have obviously 25 because it runs smoothly that way, but, you know. We're at 23.
council, other questions from council members? Margaret?
Following what's going on nationally, have you experienced any cuts in any programs that are funded, federally funded, any specifically like Narcan was one of the ones I was reading about? Have you had any of that experience yet?
No, not that I, but
Okay.
I have no, and with Narcan, but
Nothing has come down?
we
Yeah.
get, we have an overabundance of Narcan, and we're able to replace when we use it. We have it, a steady stream of it that we're able to.
yeah. Plus our other grants at this point, I think are fine so far, so
The,
good.
the other thing, I didn't hear it reported on, I think it happened in April. There was a motorcycle accident on Warren Street at 6. Do you have any information on that? It happened actually right in front of it.
Saturday. Saturday morning, on the right to 6th in Warren.
This,
It was a
I was thinking
motorcycle
about.
coming up Warren, and the car turned on 6th.
The guy was found.
I don't have any information on that, I
Yeah,
can get back to you, because that would be May anyway, so, or I can email you, whatever works for you.
I don't
I
believe
would-
there were any, major injuries or anything with that. I believe you took over, but,
Jerry?
Down in Black Rock.
Right.
I don't believe there was any major injuries or anything. That
No.
my memory serves me correctly. Yeah, I believe he was fairly uninjured. I don't believe there was anything
yeah,
major.
okay,
My memory serves me correctly.
thank you.
Okay, other council members? No? Okay, Lloyd.
I asked him to go down the next day, walking around it. Up front, towards the right side, by Columbia, and he was fine. And he was
Okay.
fine.
Thank you, Lloyd. Peter Spear.
I met the canine once, and I'm embarrassed I've forgotten the canine's name.
Regs.
Riggs?
Regs are.
Riggs,
Yeah, Riggs.
Are.
named after Bobby Wrigley.
Oh, sweet, thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you, Captain. Let's see. Okay, Heather, are you there?
I'm here.
Okay, ooh.
What's wrong?
I can only hear you on my computer.
And I can
Yes.
only hear, I can basically only hear you. I can very faintly hear the other council members and the audience members, but not very clearly at all. And also there's no video.
Yeah, I know they
So-
don't video. It has something to do with the owl, and I'm not sure what.
Okay.
Hold on a second. Anybody, what has?
Yeah, that could be.
Plugged into what?
That's what that computer.
Computer?
Yeah.
Why did that not reach? Oh, be careful, be careful. Please, wait.
Whiteboard. 54.
Also does.
Yes,
Heather's report has not been posted, right?
I don't believe so, no.
So let
I'm sorry, what did you think? So she, I know, that's why we're gonna try here. Should it? Connect it to this? Hold on, Heather.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if it's gonna fit, but okay. I don't think it reaches. No, don't mess with that. That's. No, that's fine over there. That's taking care of something. Where's Ronnie? Yeah,
You laugh out there in here?
yeah, I suppose I could, but.
Hold on, Tom.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
Now, is that all right? Heather, how about now?
I can hear your audio. I still have no video.
Yeah,
The question is, can you see, if I screen share, will you be able to see mine?
right, that is the question.
An alternative I could do, if most people have their iPads or whatever they're using there, is I could email it to you or Margaret. I think I have your emails in my personal, because I'm on my home computer at this point. So I can't just pull up everybody's email, but then potentially somebody could distribute it to the other council members.
Thank you, Heather, we got it. I'm gonna put a speaker, microphone. We got it.
Okay. So then I'm going to share my
Don't
screen.
do anything else. Okay, it's fine. We got it. Okay. Go ahead, Heather.
I'm working on it. Hold on.
Or send it to Margaret.
I'm having trouble sharing now. I don't know why. It's giving me a weird.
Can you send it to Margaret or
I can't share
you can't share?
because I'm logged in as a resident.
No. Okay, maybe.
It's I'm sorry, it's weird. The Teams thing has changed its share and it's not pulling up the Chrome browser, which is where I have this opened. So let me try this. Let's see if I can do it this way. Hold on. Okay, how's that?
Yeah,
Now I can see it.
yeah, excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Great.
Heather.
Apologies for the tech snafus on all sides. Okay, so just top line on the 2025 numbers to date, still early in the year. So obviously a lot of the key numbers that we'd like to look at, as you'll see when we get a little further down, we don't have numbers in yet. You can see that plumbing and building permits are only at about 9% versus budget. So that's a little lower than we'd like to see, but also perhaps not that surprising because, we're coming out of the winter season. So we'll obviously be keeping a track on that, on a monthly basis. and we will continue to follow that. Parking revenues. So again, this is through April, so that's a third of the year. And you can see that for the total of parking in general, we're at about 27%. I think that Front Street lot number might be a little low because I'm not sure that we get those numbers after the fact because they're deposited into our bank account. So until we do the bank reconciliation, we can't add those to the general ledger. So I think that 110 is really only through March. I would not be too concerned about that. So basically all the parking things look more or less on track. This next section is where I'm saying we don't really have a lot to report on yet. We haven't got a mortgage tax payment yet. We get those 2 times a year. We haven't got a cannabis payment yet this year. That's still kind of questionable as to when they're going to be issued. It should be 4 times a year. I will reach out to the county and find out when we can anticipate the first payment. Lodging tax, just as a reminder, that would be basically the first quarter, but we only recognize half of it because half of it gets charged back to the prior year. So that number always looks low for the first quarter of 2020, first quarter of any fiscal year, frankly. And then the sales tax contribution, again, we did not receive a payment in the first 3 months, but I did take a look and we did receive it in May, and it's about $355,000. That's pretty much on target for budget and a little higher. I think first quarter in 2024 was about 515. So it's a little bit higher than what we had a year ago for the first quarter. So that looks, good. In terms of financial reporting, we did complete the annual financial report, aka the AFR. It's been filed with New York State. It's also been filed with the clerk's office, and it's also published on the city's website. The next step is obviously getting auditors in. So they auditor, all of the financials across all of the budgets. We go through this every year. We're about to start prepping by providing them, trying to get as much information as we can to them in advance. The week of July 7th is going to be, and it's generally the week after that as well, is going to be like the really hard press from them. I'm talking literally, 300 emails in less than a week asking for various amounts of data and things. So, and then there'll be a bunch of follow-up with them, as is the case, but I anticipate that we will have the audited financial statements no later than October 2025, which is great because they have to be filed with the muni market, since we're out on the public. We have public bonds, serial bonds, and bond anticipation notes. So there are requirements in terms of when we get this done and when it has to be filed. So we should be in good shape on that front. So in addition to cracking down on trying to get the AFR done, the other thing that my office has been just jam-packed with is the upgrade to our financial systems packages. We actually converted the general ledger software over on March 14th. And so basically for the last 5 weeks or so, we've been getting to use it and finding all the mistakes that we have to report and the errors, as is the way with software. But overall, it's gone pretty well. I mean, won't lie, the first 2 or 3 weeks were very challenging, but it's in a pretty decent, there's still some things that have to be fixed, but it's in pretty decent shape. We've had various departments, who do their own bills on a monthly basis. We've had multiple, I think every department at this point has successfully done 1 round of paying their vouchers in the new system. There are some pluses and minuses and some things we're trying to work out, but in some cases it's pretty nice because we're trying to work to a more electronic workflow. Unfortunately, that's probably not going to benefit you, council folk, because for the vouchers that you have to approve, there's no really easy way, at least we haven't figured out yet, to figure out how to get overall council approval. Whereas, for the departments that have commissioners, they can go from, the clerk to the department head to the commissioner to the mayor, all electronic sign-offs. We're hoping to try and figure out a way to do that for the bills that come in front of you as well. And I probably will, we've obviously got other things we've got to figure out first, but would love to touch base with probably, I would guess, the finance committee to see how we might be able to do that going forward. It's not a imperative, but it would be a nice to have. Tax collection, we're back in the middle of that. As you know, this was basically one of the things that delayed our implementation for so long because the city offers a back taxes installment payment plan. And that has been the thing that has kept us in the really, really old software since well before my time. So that's how old it is. We just had a data conversion meeting this week, the end of last week, and it actually seemed to go pretty well. They seem to really understand, the things that we need in place before we can convert. So right now we look like we're on target for July 2025. Utility billing, that's going to be the last one done. We're having issues with that. But we're working on that as well. It was originally supposed to be in March and now tentatively also looking at July. I will not be surprised if it's slightly delayed beyond that, just because if we have to focus on tax collection first, it'd be difficult to do both. But overall, we're getting there. And, there are certain things that we're finding, different and challenging, but overall, it's that 80-20 rule where 80% of it is better. And I think it'll only get better over time. One of my goals is to enhance the kind of reporting that I'm providing to you guys. I haven't had too much of a chance to get in there or play around with things, but I'm really hoping I can bring you, more information in a more easily digestible form, ideally with maybe graphs and things like that. That maybe don't expect that next month, but, that's certainly one of my goals. Still working on payroll, still having issues with that. Won't go into that. SID seems to be working great. Gary and the SID team seem to have everything buttoned up on their end. My end now is going to be, okay, the data comes in on the assessment, the RPS role, which is, the assessment database role. That information is going to be there. Now we have to figure out how that actually gets physically onto the tax bill so that people see it as part of their tax bill. And we have to figure out how that gets put into the tax collection system so it can be collected, identified separately, parsed out, and distributed off to the sidewalk improvement fund the same way that we do re-levied water and sewer. Software developer is well aware of it. We've already had a couple conversations about it. I think they think that they've got it more or less figured out. So I'm cautiously optimistic about that. 98 Paddock Place. For those of you that have been around for a lot, you know that this is a foreclosure from 2017 that then the property owner, after the parcel had been foreclosed upon and transferred into the city's name, declared bankruptcy. Long story short, he defaulted on the bankruptcy agreement, on the bankruptcy plan, and at that point COVID hit, and then we've had, a variety of issues trying to get this thing going. We finally do indeed have an attorney that has been working on it. They've had a couple court cases. HPD and code enforcement were very helpful in that. For some reason, the judge wanted a visit to the property, and they were both HPD and code enforcement were great and provided that capability. We now officially have an eviction date of July 9th. So, never say never, because obviously this thing has been going on for a long time, but it would be great to get that off the docket and back, into a tax-paying property owner's hands. The other big thing that my office, primarily I have been working on, is it's that time again to renew our short-term financing and to provide any long-term financing that we can. Currently right now, last year we issued bonds for a few different products. One was the NIPA LED lighting thing. One was for bar screens and some other equipment for sewer. And the third one's for the union extra sewer line that went in. Those all went into long-term financing. We did issue bond anticipation notes in about $7 million for the DRI Hudson Connects portion and for the Ferry Street Bridge. Unfortunately, since both of those projects are still in construction and we don't anticipate having all the expenditures in, let alone the reimbursement request in, let alone the reimbursement monies back, we're going to have to borrow for that again. Had a very productive meeting today with our bond counsel and with Rob Perry to try and figure out, how much do we really need to borrow to cover, when do we anticipate getting, reimbursements back. As a lot of you know, that's been a very variable time frame in terms of when the applications get put in and when the reimbursements come back. So it's a little difficult to try and nail down. But nonetheless, within the next 2 weeks, we will have the numbers that we're going to borrow. It's going to be roughly, again, somewhere between 7 and 8 million, because we don't have any reimbursement for Ferry Street Bridge at all at this point. So we're fronting all of that money still. And we have some from Hudson Connects, but we also had a project cost increase. So we'll be roughly about the same amount. The official statement, which is the document that goes out that, all the people that might want to buy municipal bonds will look at to review, is in development now. The official statement and the notice of sale be distributed on May 28th. The sale will actually be on June 4th. Basically, the next 2 weeks after that is the distribution of the final official statement, and that's the original official statement, but it also has, the bids and who placed the bids and what the interest rates are. So it's the full financial picture of the actual results of the sale. June 18th, we will get the money, and then somewhere between June 18th and June 20th, we'll pay off the $7 million ban from 2024. So that's a pretty big focus right now for us. In terms of other borrowing, the one other major thing right now, the two other major things, one is that pumper truck, but as we've discussed, the delivery has been delayed, so it looks like we're not going to have to borrow that until this next round of borrowing. The fire department is pretty confident that they won't receive it until July or August of 2026, which is great, because that means we will be able to borrow for it like right, a month or two before we're going to need the money, which is pretty ideal. If anything changes on that timing, either earlier or later, we'll have to address it at the time, because you don't want to borrow money well too far in advance. But on the other hand, if they say the thing's ready to go, then we're going to have to be ready to pay for it when it's ready to go. So if it ends up being before, when we go back out to renew finances, that means we'd have to do a separate offering. Keeping my fingers crossed that that's not going to happen. And the last big thing that we've discussed, you approved amended bond resolution last month for this $66 million phase 1 sewer upgrade. Right now, it's primarily going to be engineering, I think, for the next year and a half or so. So we're not looking at any borrowing for that now. Anything that we will be doing will be through EFC, through their short-term financing. There's a whole bunch of stuff that goes involved with doing short-term financing with EFC, but it's all worth it because it's 0% interest. Not the majority, but a significant amount of that project is covered by grants. So the question is whether all three of these grants, the BIL, the WIA, and the WQIP, whether they can be included under EFC short-term financing or not. We're pretty sure that the BIL and the WIA can be. It's unsure whether the $10 million would also be. If it can't be, that means we'd have to go out for a bond anticipation note for that portion as well. And then there's also, when you look at debt limits and how much debt you're allowed to carry, there are certain exceptions, and much of sewer debt can be excluded from the constitutional debt limit, but that's a process that we have to go through in terms of, making the determinations. It's an application you have to make with the state. It has to get approved by the state. So we're working on that in parallel, so that we'll be ready to go on that. In terms of resolutions, I will have for you for the formal meeting, and I will try and get it to you, at least a day or two before that, will be a resolution to authorize the commencement of foreclosure proceedings that we talked about last month. Our very archaic tax collection system is back up and running. Keep your fingers crossed. So I've done an initial run, but it's unscrubbed. And what I mean by that is there's literally somebody on there who owns 17 cents of a penalty. We're clearly not going to be foreclosing on them for 17 cents of a penalty. So we just have to scrub it and make sure that the list makes sense. But just to give you a ballpark idea, it's 188 properties now. As I said, out of those, 35 are literally less than $100. 20 of them are less than $1,000. 7 of them are over 6 figures, though, and that's 40% of the total that's amount owed. And 70% of the total taxes that are owed is just 26 out of those 188 properties. The list right now is $2.26 million in delinquent taxes and another 827. I'm sorry, that should not be an M. Don't get excited. That should be a K. Another 827,000 in penalties. And while we have discussed on multiple occasions that collecting the delinquent taxes does not help revenue, that revenue's already been identified and recognized, what that does is obviously helps our cash flow significantly. But that $827,000 in penalties would all be new revenue. So obviously we want to pursue that. And that's pretty much it.
Okay, I have 2 questions for you, Heather.
Yep.
And I want to preface them by making clear that something I think a lot of the public doesn't understand. Neither the council nor the mayor can tell Heather what to do. Heather is chief financial officer. She does what she does. We can't force her to do anything. Having said that, a month ago, you promised us a list of these delinquent taxpayers. And that's my first question. So I'm kind of wondering where that is. And then the second is about the audit and why we have yet again an adverse opinion, which seems to address your accounting principles. Can you explain that?
Let me take them one at a time. You might have to remind me what the adverse opinion was on, because I know it's the 2023 audit, and I'm pretty sure I remember what the issues were, but did not realize it was going to be on that. So let's start with the foreclosure thing. As we have mentioned multiple times, we are running software that is literally from 1998. The software crashed. The software crashed about a day before I was trying to run the list for the last month. It was not up and running until after the formal meeting last time was over. And I'd sent you that as an email, Tom. It was inaccessible to anyone. The system did not work. We had to get the IT guy back in. He had to restore the software to let it run again. It's one of those things where it's literally so old. Like if I was trying to run this report, which is, resource intensive, and I think what the case was that the water sewer billing clerk was trying to run her water sewer, either her billing or her penalty at the same time, and it literally took the whole system down for 2 days. So that's the first thing. Second thing. 2023 audit. If I remember correctly, in terms of adverse opinions, there's a couple different adverse opinions. There's one that you're going to see every single year because we do not calculate.
We lost you, Heather. We lost you, Heather.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me now? Hello?
Oh, there you go.
Back? Okay. So I don't have the audit in front of me, but I can remember obviously several things. The first thing is there's going to be an adverse opinion that is going to be and has been, you can go back and look at it for 15 or 20 years. It's always the same adverse opinion because we do not, what's the best way to describe it? We do not have, and we have not done an actuarial calculation in terms of post-employment benefits. You will find that that is very true among most small municipalities because the cost involved in getting that actuarial study generally outweighs the value of it. And obviously, since we've been out on the bond market and been quite successful, it does not seem to be something that, most bond investors seem to be overly concerned about. I'm certainly happy to, put out an RFP and see how much it would cost again, and we can make that determination, but that's the one. The second one that I remember is that there were a number of sewer revenue chargebacks that were missed. And basically what that means is if the work is done in, let's say, December of 2023, and DPW doesn't get the invoice until 2024, they have to be aware of whether the work was done in 23 or 24 and either charge back that invoice or not accordingly. That was something that was not happening as consistently as it should have been. We did correct it in the audited financial statements, and we put, in my opinion, a better system in place to help the DPW clerk identify and correctly charge the revenue chargebacks to where they should be. So I'm quite confident that you will not see that problem in 2024. In
Okay, well,
Vermont,
we got the document posted already, so I guess you haven't seen it yet, so we can postpone the conversation, I guess.
No. I mean, it's a document from, quite some time ago. I just was surprised that it was on the agenda today because I thought we had already had it presented to the council back when it first came out. But if there's other specific questions you have, I'm happy to answer them.
Nope, that's great. Thank you, Heather. Council members. Yeah. Public?
My name is Quentin Cross. I just want to know who we are. So the public can understand. I know the treasurer keeps saying we. Who is the we?
If you could please put my state saying we in context for me, then I can tell you.
I'm sorry, what, Heather? I didn't understand it.
What is the question?
My question is who is the we? She keeps saying we.
I'm sorry?
The treasurer keeps saying we didn't do this or we didn't do that. Who is the we? The treasurer, the duly elected
I
official.
think on some occasions she's referring.
Excuse me, I'm talking to the treasurer. She said, ask me a question, not the older person in the first ward. Madam Treasurer, I'm asking you.
So I say we generally to imply the city. So for example, in the case of sewer revenue chargebacks, that is something that, DPW is responsible for doing based under the charter. But it depends on what aspect of the finances you're charging. When we're talking about debt service, is primarily me in terms of the management or going out and the borrowing, but that we also includes the council and the mayor, because I can't do anything without getting council approval to do it and without the mayor signing off on it. So I generally use we to mean the city as a whole.
Okay, any other questions from the public?
Well, I just want to clarify something that so about this uncollected taxes, I had sent an email to Heather and to the mayor and to, Mr. Howard.
Andy Howard.
And finance committee. And I had them also, I looked into the law firm that can take the case. And the mayor gave the go-ahead to Mr. Howard to go ahead with it. So I think we're gonna start now.
So do we have an attorney now?
There is an attorney. I don't know what happened. I mean, but
I mean, that's not something Heather can do. That has to be done.
No, I know of this, but because the uncollected taxes keep coming up, I'm saying that the mayor did give the go-ahead to Mr. Howard to go ahead with the case.
Heather.
So, correct, Heather?
What? Yeah, no, Vicky's exactly right. She had sent a recommendation for an attorney that could handle it to the mayor, myself, and to Corporation Counsel. And the mayor did direct Corporation Counsel Andy Howard to, explore that as an opportunity. And Attorney Howard said that he would do so. So I too am optimistic that we will actually have someone engaged to start this process in the not too distant future.
Okay, thank you. Another question?
Yes, I wanna know, Madam Treasurer, was the funds for this attorney budgeted or did it need to go to the Board of Estimate and Apportionment? And who compiles the list for such properties and things that need to come in order to be executed?
We do have some money in the 2025 budget toward the foreclosure process. It's not entirely clear yet until we finally scrub the list and know how many there are. We'll have to determine whether there was enough budgeted, but there are some funds that were prepared in 2025 to start this process. And in terms of the list, I would be generating the list out of our tax collection software, basically pulling anybody that has delinquent taxes, if they owe taxes from 2024 or prior. But then ultimately that list goes to the council to approve and to authorize the start of the proceedings. And then that in turn gets approved by the mayor, like any other resolution. And that is the resolution we're talking about having, that I'm talking about having available next week.
Madam Treasurer, thank you. Have you ever compiled that list for this council?
For this council, no, because of, yep, we have done one, and sorry, I said we again. I personally have only been involved in one foreclosure proceeding before this.
Okay, thank you, Heather. One more question, Lloyd.
Lloyd, your question isn't Heather. Very impressed with your work. It seems like you're on top of a whole lot of goals you got going on. Yeah. And I, for one, am just delighted with your diligence and your command of the subject. So kudos to you.
Okay.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. It's gotten a lot more complicated in the time I've been here, frankly.
And I'm a former Treasury Secretary.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
Next up, Rob, are you there? I can't see everybody.
I'm here.
Where are you? There you are.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, it's my favorite time of year, election season. Let's see what we got here for the window.
Are you running for something?
Am I? I get asked to all the time, but no. Been there, done that, Tom.
I know.
All right, where am I looking for? Sharing. How am I not sharing the screen here? Oh my goodness gracious sake. Why are you not sharing? And here we go. Okay, you can see this?
Yes, John.
Perfect. Okay, acceptance revenue for March was $35,800, so that's close to what we expect to see, once we come out of the winter months. So we have a speedies permit. That's our state pollutant discharge and elimination. It's the permit that's issued to us from DEC, and it comes with many requirements and parameters as to how we're supposed to manage the collection system as well as the treatment of the city's sewer and the limits it gets discharged into the environment. And we've been under an administrative kind of extension for 10 years. And part of it was because we needed to build the plant, which we built 15 years ago. So it's taken DEC a decade and a half to catch up to the work that we did. And in that time, many things have changed in the realm of wastewater management and wastewater treatment. So this is just kind of a sheet. It's a punch list of what DEC gave to us as things that will probably be changing in our process, in our done at the plant, as well as a number of regulatory changes and amendments to things like our long-term control plan. Obviously, measuring for emerging contaminants is something that's that's PFAS and things of that nature. Many of these things don't really apply. We don't expect to find any of these, the mercury per se, or any of these other contaminants. But it's they paint, the EPA is painting with a broad brush. Everybody's got to monitor for it. So it's just going to be more costly for us, a lot more lab results. We're also going to need to probably our chlorine residual limit is going to drop significantly. So we're probably going to have to add a dechlorination system at the end of the treatment process, which is going to be very costly. That's going to be a capital project at the plant, but we don't have anything set in stone yet, so we really can't plan for what it is. And we imagine it'll be probably 3 to 4 years to implement all of the requirements in the new permit once we get it. Let's see. So one of the things that they've asked for is they wanted us to locate our discharge point in the river. So we went out in the river in a boat. This was earlier this month. And, we used the drawings for the 1960s to kind of approximate where it is. It's anywhere from 12 to 15 feet below the surface. And then we've put some dye in there to test it so we can mark it out. We've had discussions with the Hudson Fire Department dive team to go and actually physically observe it, because there are some specific information that DEC wants. They want to know the diameter of the pipe at discharge, whether or not it has a diffuser on it, and also its real depth and elevation. Those things will all go into some kind of a matrix of decision of whatever, and that will that'll modify where we are on our discharge parameters for the new permit. So that's just something that we'll be doing in the next month or so. Water department, or any water quality report is online. There's no violations. If you read it studiously, you'll see that there was a high mark for odor. I don't know what that's about. It's a subjectivity thing. We sent it out for a second sample, and the second sample said no odor. So whatever. It's purely subjective, and there's no health impact based on that result. That's why our lead service line inventory potholing took place last month and continues this month. I think there's about 20 different properties where a vac truck is being used. It will expose the corporation stop, and they'll be able to identify on either side from the main and into the house what material the water service is. If either one of them is lead, then we identify it as lead, and we're just part of our continuing to upgrade the inventory that we're required to maintain by the EPA and the health department. This is down at the Promenade Hill, the splash pad. So, it was shut down early last year because it was leaking and blowing out. So you can see there's some damage that was done to one of the nozzles on the ground. We replaced that, made a new connection. While we were there, we replaced the union of another pipe with a shutoff valve, as well as one of the nozzles for the spray unit. So hopefully, we can get all of this back together and get that spray pad up and running for the warm weather. But it is a fragile piece of equipment, and it is not indestructible by human hands. The Stone Sewer, this was the one that was on Channel 10, the one for the 300 block. So this just gives you an idea of what they look like before we open them up, just basically a black hole of nothingness. Once it was open, they went in, formed it out, concrete truck drops concrete, and then after, this is the 11, here's your final restoration, bottom left. We also had some other, this was over on 2nd Street, a clay tile that was cracked in the lateral service, and you can see you cut out the old ones and put in the new with a couple Fernco couplings. Pretty low tech, but effective. As most have noticed, we started our milling and paving project. So this is over on Parkwood. The millings themselves go into larger trucks. We don't actually haul the milling. All of our neighbors, we let the other town highway superintendents know about it. To them, the material is pretty golden because they have a lot of roads that are dirt, and this will help bind it up. We don't really have any use for it in the city. For a number of years, the milling contractor would give us stone or a material that we could use as a trade, but that market softened up, so they didn't, we weren't offered a trade. So what this does is we allow to give product to our neighbors on our shared services agreement that they can use, we don't need, and we don't have to pay a third party to haul because we don't have any large trucks, honestly. Our trucks would carry about a third of what each one of those trucks carries. So it all works out well at the end of the day. We did have torrential rain on Friday. Friday was supposed to be the first day of paving. And so what it did is because there was no pavement on the road, the water really got in and undermined some of the sub base. So this had to be excavated. There was also some damage to the manhole structure below, which had to be repaired. Here they are trying to repair a water valve on Worth Avenue, and they are, they were just trying to, this is a day after the rain, just trying to divert the water so that they could make repairs. And so it really was, we had crews in over Saturday and Sunday, just trying to get the road kind of somewhat back into a safe condition before the milling could start today. And this is apropos, I was just texted by my foreman that Worth Avenue is officially complete and open to traffic. So if HPD are listening, get ready. The raceway is definitely open. Other operations, spring cleanup on Promenade Hill. We send the guys over with harnesses and safety gear. This is because all the sumac and everything grow up over top, obstruct the view in late summer. So that's just a preventative maintenance issue. We also have, this is around St. Winifred. So we had the guys weeding and put some mulch down. This, I'm just showing this specifically because I believe it's this weekend or next weekend. Rotary is working with a local landscape architect. They're working with Ben Eaton from the Secret Garden and a couple of other, I think maybe, I can't remember, out on Mount Marino Hill, the guy out there. Ponce, okay, great, thank you, whoever that was. So, and some of them are, donating time and materials. Obviously, the Rotary Club are donating all their time. So, we put some logistics and, got some of the stuff prepped for them. They'll be using hose bibs and the thing, and we're going to be hauling away all the waste after they're done with their project. So, look for this to get spruced up in the next week or two. Of the Promenade Hill Capital Project, the DRI project, the paint was failing on the benches, and so we did file a warranty claim. So this is the new wood. It's just stained naturally. We don't know what's going on with the paint, so this way we don't have to worry about it. I think it looks cleaner this way, but anyway, that claim is complete. There was also some concerns over the pavers in the front. What happened is the elevation of the old park and the sidewalk is probably about 4 inches lower than the new sidewalk. So they had to match the pavers to the old sidewalk before it was demolished in this project. Then the pavers were taken out, reset. They did drop over the course of the winter with the freeze-thaw cycles, but they were removed and reset, and so now they do match up the grade with the granite sets of the new plaza and the new entrance. What else do we have here? And this is just, we did put the river docks in and the city's docks are in. We also assisted New York State with putting theirs at the boat launch in. This is just, the docks are 15 years old. We've done replacements of most of the floats at least once. And in this one, after a while, there's a little bit of fatigue. So we had a welder come in and about 4 or 5 of these supports had to be welded and reinforced. The Ferry Street Bridge. So this is the water service. It has been connected all the way across. If it was actually pressure tested and sample was taken away for bacteriological test today. Once that passes, we'll open valves on both sides and this main will be in service. There used to be a main here. It froze many years ago, maybe 20 years ago or so, and was taken out of service. So this is the first time that we have a new one, and the idea is to create a looped system for Water Street instead of having a dead end. So it's a water quality issue. It's also a water service issue. We've upgraded the size of the main. So this was incorporated in part of the project. National Grid has come and put their gas main in next. We also see This is this is rebar and for the new walkways, the sidewalks along the side. You can see here, this is the rebar and forms for the approaches, and afterwards, the approaches are all complete, the deck is complete. Sidewalks, I believe, were poured maybe today, and if not today, then tomorrow. You can see the island with the grout is all set. So we're getting pretty close. There's not much left. Signage, street lights, and fencing and railing and guardrails. There's and then the blacktop for the new approach for the new road. But it's getting there. It's gonna wind up pretty quickly, wind down pretty quickly. The DRI project's also winding down. This is a temporary asphalt. This over here is topsoil for the landscaper. The stop signs are temporary. So you have to see the granite sets have to be put in there. And they're also temporary because there are new signs that have a bit of a, I guess they're going to have a bit of a detail added to them. I didn't know you modified stop signs, but apparently you can. So, like I said, this is just a temporary sign to be replaced at a later date. Also, the DRI, these are just some of the things that we cleared out when we did the demolition last month of the Fagari. So we found many propane tanks, a lot of garbage, was just scattered about and stuck inside of them. This is actually part of the structural scenario of a couple of them. These are oil barrels. They were filled up with concrete, and then railroad ties were shoved into them, and then they were buried into the ground below the water level. And these railroad ties would then support the shacks. And I'm absolutely positive that those barrels were very diligently cleaned before the concrete was put in them, because the real stewards. So, let's see, this is what we've got here. The final look where everything's grading. And that's it. Happy spring. Magnolia tree at the cemetery.
Okay, thank you, Rob. Council members, any questions? Jennifer?
Hi, Rob. I was walking around and I saw the new sidewalks and they look great, except that some of them are already cracking. And I took some pictures and I'll forward them to you. I have another question though. If we were to try and mitigate the water at Mill Street, what would that project look like? First of all, can we do it? And second of all, what would that look like and how much would it cost? Is it millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions? What is it?
As far as the cracks in the sidewalk, we're aware of it. We did a walkthrough with the mayor's aide, contractor, engineer last week. They're supposed to come up with a full depth repair. So they're probably gonna have to just cut out the cracks and re-pour a joint in between them. So I don't need the pictures. I've got them. We're all set. That's taken care of. As far as the Mill Street, what do you want? There's an expression, right? It only floods when it rains. I mean, you're talking about half of the city goes there, out of the watershed of Oakdale and Underhill Pond, the boulevards. Actually, part of Greenport behind McDonald's drains down there. So, somebody's going to have to do a study. I mean, I can't answer that question on the fly. I mean, you might be able to raise the level of Underhill to impound more water during a heavy rain event and have like a discharge point at a little lower elevation. But
So you build a dam?
I don't know. Well, there's already effectively a dam because there's a pipe in the bottom of Underhill that goes under Glenwood Boulevard. So the idea would be theoretically is that you could put some kind of a structure on the front of that would make the water raise the water level or require the water level to go higher, and it would give you some detention time. Maybe so that way when you get a heavy storm, it all doesn't come down as once. But that's that's for the engineers to go out and model with their special range software and, all their doodads. But I believe I don't know, I thought the developer was considering to do some kind of a study. So have you spoken to the planning board about this?
Yes,
All right, and what did they tell you?
the study, and all the study basically says is that they won't make it worse.
Mhm.
Any questions for Ron
Okay.
from the council? From the public?
Mr. Barry, thank you for your service. So you're again, another person that's on top of the job and handling a lot of changing conditions on the fly if necessary. And you're doing, I think, Hudson is well served by your continuing diligence in what you provide for the city. And again, kudos to you. And you might be interested to know there's 4 mayoral candidates here in attendance.
Well, there's actually 3.
Listen, thank you, Lloyd. And I don't have video of the room, but I absolutely knew that. Been in this business for a while.
Right,
It's okay, I put a little about him.
Back to Heather, is she still on?
Heather, you still here?
Yes, I'm still
Heather?
here.
Guess I'm done then.
Yeah, you're done, Rob. Thank you.
All right, bye-bye.
Thank you.
Hi, Rob. I've just been thinking about that, concept of the $2.6 million of back taxes. The names are on software from 1998 that's failing and crashes when you try to open that. Is that something that has ever been tried to switch to a different software or fix so that doesn't happen? That seems like a pretty bad problem if every time we try to access those names, the software crashes.
Yes,
Yeah,
as I mentioned earlier in my report, we're actually about to start the conversion to an upgraded tax collection software. We're in the middle of the data conversion now. We're hoping that that will be complete in January of this year. So yes, I mean, the council did approve the budget to upgrade that software quite a number of years ago. The city has some very specific requirements. One being the fact that we do allow people with delinquent taxes to enter into basically a payment plan. That's a sort of unique piece of it's a unique piece that has to be built into the software. So that is one of the reasons why it has been delayed. But it's been approved, the contract's been signed, we're in the middle of the data conversion, and we hope to be in a new tax collection software system, ideally by July, but as long as it's by September, October, I'll be thrilled.
Great, thank you.
Okay, thank you again, Heather.
Questions?
Yes,
I know, Tom, I love you too. Heather, I mean, I know you're in the middle of a conversion process, but are there people backup to this data, these reports, historically or something like that?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a whole, our IT guy's great. There's a whole, I can't, it's funny because I just had to write this for that official statement you were talking about, but basically my writing it was asking the IT guy and him telling me what to say. So I can throw around some high-tech sounding words, but the long and the short of it is the stuff gets backed up on a regular basis every night, and it can always be pulled back.
okay, that's it. We'll move right along. We're gonna start with our resolutions for tonight. First resolution is appointing Commissioner Deeds. Can I have an introduction and a second, please? Juan and Trisha. The next resolution is in support of the Dignity Not Detention Act. Can I have an introduction and a second? Okay, hold on a second. Interfere. Any discussion?
These are the immigration rules, right? Okay. Is there anyone here who can speak to
Yeah.
the specific legislation?
Yes.
Who is that?
There she is.
Okay, hi, so Margaret Morris, First Ward. I was looking at the legislation around, excuse me, counsel for immigrants in immigration proceedings. And I went back to the current law, which appears to be under New York Immigrant Family Unity Project. And it appears to be on, there are provisions for providing counsel to immigrants in here. So I guess my question on this was, and when I looked at that law, the law that's currently at the Assembly and Senate is listed as an amendment to that original law, which went in, I think, in 2017 or 2018. So what is this strengthening it? Is it shifting where the funding comes from? What's the thing here?
Yeah, so what you're referring to is the Access to Representation Act, and by the way, I'm Meridian, I'm the campaign coordinator with.
I'm sorry, could you speak up a little? I'm a little
Yeah.
hard of hearing.
Yeah,
Lower.
yeah, sure. So I just want to introduce myself. I'm Meridian. I'm the campaign coordinator with Columbia County Sanctuary Movement. And yeah, the Access to Representation Act is the act that you're specifically referencing right now. And what the Access to Representation Act would do is essentially ensure that New York State creates, it would be a first in the nation.
That's not the one we're doing yet.
Oh, the
We're
one
on,
that you're referencing though is Access to
No,
Representation.
there were a couple of things.
well, dignity, not detention. Did you have a
So
question?
no, you're answering the question that I'm asking, because when I looked at what was put in place, it appeared that there was a nonprofit which was receiving funding from the city and the state to provide representation. So what I'm trying to figure out is this new iteration, which is listed as an amendment to that original law. Is it creating a situation where it fall under the public defender's offices now? What is it doing that the current law isn't doing?
Sure, so if we're on dignity, not detention, that's separate. Should I wait to answer the rest?
No, just, this is really the only, these things are related, so I really would like an answer to this.
Well, I think we should wait till we're on that resolution.
Yeah,
I'm sorry,
I think we should wait till we're on that resolution.
but we're almost finished the conversation, so,
Yeah, but that's not how it works. So let's stick with the resolutions in order. It might make it a little easier.
remember my question.
Excuse me.
yes. I'll definitely-
Okay, did you have any other questions about the Dignity Not Detention Act? Okay, moving right along. The next is report to the rest amendment. Can I have an introduction and a second, please? Jennifer and Lou. Any discussion, questions? Number of people here prepared to answer questions.
Yes, I have. I just got it. So I've done this work for many years. And mainly, I just want to say that, I just was never raising the rent more than 2% and not even every year, because I felt that the rent increases should cover some tax increase. And not necessarily any repairs or renovations. I think they should be covered from the landlord in, in the budget of finance doing this. And I always wanted to have tenants to stay as long as possible, lifetime. Because it was not only, I wanted to consider it as their home, not only for them, but also it was easier for me. I didn't want to see people. I just don't understand why. I have two questions. Is one, why we're doing this now before, Congress? I don't understand the timing of that. And also because it's elections, I don't want to be politicized. A topic like this was really people's lives, and I don't want candidates to use it. Oh, I was for this, I was for that. I mean, it seems to me the bill it's not finished yet. We don't know the units. We don't know a lot of things. And the other thing is I see a lot of signs for the many. And when I was trying to understand what it is all about. I saw that you're sponsored or connected with the Tides organization, and then I saw that there's a big lawsuit of Black Lives Matter of 33 million, so Tides mishandling the money, that they were really money of Black Lives Matter. And they're saying how they're using the Black and brown people for their causes, and it was really very disturbing to read the lawsuit. So I don't know exactly what's your connection of the for the many or the Tides organization, but what I read, it wasn't that good. So maybe
Let's start with Naomi Dan, who is an attorney and is willing to speak on the first questions.
Thanks. I'm actually not an attorney,
Oh,
but
I think you were.
I'm not, but I'm Naomi Dan with Housing Justice for All, I'm the chief of staff there. And we do statewide policy advocacy on housing affordability. To your first question, what the REST Act is a local control bill. It gives municipalities more power to decide whether rent stabilization is right for their community. It makes it easier for them to adopt it if they decide that it makes sense for their community, and also gives them more flexibility to tailor it to meet the needs of the local housing market. So when you're saying that it doesn't have the specific numbers on the units, that's actually because they're giving that power back to municipalities. Right now, the state law limits it to buildings that have 6 or more units. And part of what the REST Act would do would say, actually, like, you should look at what your local housing stock is. If everything here is a 3 or 4 family rental, then we should allow you to decide to cover those buildings if you so choose. So primarily what the REST Act does is put the power in the hands of municipalities to decide whether this policy makes sense for them and then tailor it to meet their needs.
yeah, no, I understand, but why they're doing it now prior to election, like a month before elections, we're having to deal with something which is a little bit controversial, but you know, I don't know this week where you decide, that's what I'm saying.
Sure. The legislative session happens to now coincide with the municipal election. That is a feature of the state law that changed a couple years ago. Because the state budget was 6 weeks late, it just wrapped up, as you guys know, last week. We now have very little time in the legislative session to do anything, and it ends in June. So this is the time frame in which we are pushing for state legislation.
And it's still in committee, correct?
Yes.
And there's only a month left?
There is only much left. This bill was introduced in February, so it's actually new legislation. This is the first year that the coalition has been supporting, has been working on it. We're hoping that it could be passed out of committee and even get passed by the whole legislature this year, because it's really, I know you say it's controversial, but it is about, it doesn't change anything on its face. It gives more power to cities to be able to decide whether or not they want it.
And there's a chance any committee can be amended?
Yeah.
So whatever we support now might not be the product at the end.
I think that part of having this conversation locally is going to be really influential on what the state legislators decide. And so if there are things that you would like to amend, this is a way to start that conversation with them. And I think there is plenty of room for continued collaboration and conversation, because it is a bill about control, what municipalities decide, and the conversations you're having are really.
How does this affect different clause eviction? One property is eligible for both of these laws if it's passed.
No, actually, they want to buy the same property.
How's that?
I'm sorry, can you explain that again?
Yeah. So good cause eviction, which was adopted, is a really critical tool to prevent unfair eviction.
Yeah.
It also,
But how does this interface with it, as Dominic is saying, if you have a property that potentially falls under either one, which takes precedence?
so the good cause eviction law exempts anything that's under any kind of other regulatory agreement. So if there was a building that was regulated by the Emergency Tenant Protection Act, just the state law.
So that would take
Stabilization,
precedence.
it would take-
That would.
So because it's restricted rent, it's not eligible for legal costs.
Right, because tenants in rent restricted, rent regulated buildings have very similar protections to good cause. They're actually slightly stronger than the good cause passed for these.
So how does this affect rental? Because, like, for example, there's a new building opening up. And one bedrooms, I think, are up to $2,200, right? So how does it affect us to a landlord to say, okay, I'm gonna start my rent at 3,000? So how is that safe? How is this gonna help a tenant afford that 3,000 if a landlord in the beginning on a vacant building can start the rent high?
So rent stabilization currently under the current state law before we passed the Rest Act only applies to buildings that were built before 1974. It's probably why we think it needs some updating. It doesn't apply to any buildings built within the last 51 years. One of the things that the Rest Act would do would be to update that timeline so that there's a recurring a rolling threshold that was started 15 years ago. But it would still accept new construction. So a new building that's going up, that's building market rate, that's renting out luxury apartments. Rent stabilization would not apply to it for a good long chunk of time. But what it would do is mean that the people who are living next door in a building that suddenly maybe has more value because there's this fancy building going up right next door would not get priced out of their homes and they'd be able to stay there because the rent would be regulated by a board that would determine what kinds of increases could happen every year. And they would look at what the housing market could bear and they look at what tenants could afford and they look at what the costs are for the landlords. And they would set that threshold every single year so that it couldn't just be a situation where like this fancy building is going up over here. That means that actually the owner of the property across the street now wants to push out all of their tenants and rent out those units at much higher rates because they think that they can. The rent stabilization would protect the people in that other building.
Right, but I'm saying right now while we're discussing it, right, the landlords are now, are a little, thick and head, right? But anything now they're gonna be renting out is gonna be even higher than what the market's in house.
Yeah.
Right? So how is that gonna work? Because now those apartments are not gonna be affordable. Right? Because they're not gonna go lower. The apartment's not gonna be affordable as they start, landlord starts increasing rent even more than it's even high now. But it's like, why this wall is being kicked around? What prevents the landlord from increasing rent higher now?
You're asking what prevents the landlord from increasing the rent on a brand new building that is vacant?
No, not a brand new thing. I'm talking about a building that's vacant. That will be eligible if this law is passed. But before the law is passed, now the rent is gonna be high. Right?
Right.
So doesn't that rent start at whatever the landlord starts at the beginning before anybody moves in?
Well, we passed a law that won't allow a person to raise the rent over 8.5%. So.
No,
Yeah,
that's what he's talking about.
That's
Stuff in the new lease.
No.
if the tenant is in an apartment, then they can raise it. But
Yes,
Dominic is talking about like if it's empty,
a new lease.
then
A new
for the new tenant, the landlord could make it like they want, charge whatever they want for the rent.
I just wanted to say from my experience, no, I'm saying that.
Sure.
That it's not that easy to rent very hard, to have to a rental in a very high price. But then you're dealing with having an empty unit. And I mean, I keep looking and I see the same units over and over. I mean, as a business owner on this, I was trying to be more marketable and be reasonable, sometimes very below the market. So I have constantly a full place. I mean, if you are having an empty place, that's bad business. Because you're losing a lot.
Whatever depends on the portfolio, right? Because some landlords, right?
Yeah,
If they lose money in their investment, then, that's gonna be. So it might be, it might be encouraging for them to keep it vacant at a high rent.
If you're a small business owner, you definitely need to keep moving and not have.
I guess small,
But if you're a very wealthy developer, yes, you can probably afford and you want the losses. So, but I think this law is probably for the small business owner. From what I understand.
Yeah, I mean, I think what this law seeks to do, similar to Good Cause, is codify the practices that we were talking about, right? Where you didn't raise the rent unnecessarily, you factored, new costs. Sometimes you would eat the cost, sometimes you would pass it on to the tenant, but it was always reasonable. Rent stabilization creates a public process where landlords can go and say, hey, my costs are rising, I need to raise the rent by X amount. And they can still have the power to do that. It just creates a public process, because right now what's happening is landlords have unilateral power to raise rents. And a lot of landlords aren't forcing out their tenants. Just, Hudson is full of good landlords, but also there's some bad actors that are raising rents in a way that's forcing people out of their homes and leading to this spiraling affordability crisis. And again, this resolution does not mandate that Hudson enact rent stabilization. All this does is tell the state legislature, hey, we want more tools to address the housing crisis, of which can include rent stabilization.
Rich, you're next.
Hi, so you said, so if we enact rent stabilization, then there's a board that, people, is that board local or the state level, where?
County.
It's appointed by the council, actually, and it would be local, and it would.
By the county, did you say?
By the council,
By the council, so it would be local to Hudson,
Yeah.
hyper local.
Hyper local. Has certain requirements about who can be on the board, to be landlord representatives and tenant representatives and public representatives who have various kinds of.
And that board would set the rent cap,
They would set the rent adjustment every year.
the rent adjustment every year, local board.
So the draft that's currently in committee refers to buildings with 6 or more units. So is that the intention going forward, that that's what it would be?
That's what the current state law.
Excuse me?
That's what the
yeah.
current state
And that's the draft of the Rest Act that I looked at seemed to be staying with 6 or more units.
No, it doesn't.
law.
We have power.
It's giving municipalities the power to lower it if they want to.
So it's like the good cause, it gives the power to the municipality to decide.
Yes. It's like that. One thing that is different and worth noting is that it's about a building and the number of units, whereas good cause is about the portfolio size, which is like the way harder thing for tenants to manage. So this is much more strict. It's about small buildings.
Richard, I'm sorry, maybe this was part of your question, but so is it the rent cap applied from one tenant, if it's the same unit from one tenant to the next?
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's the crucial difference between good cause eviction, right? Good cause eviction does not, regulate rent increases in between tenancies. And so when a building's vacant, a landlord could raise it, right, like 20%. But rent stabilization keeps the unit stabilized in between tenancies, which helps slow down the rate of rent increases.
And the goal for that is so that there is a housing stock in town that remains affordable over time.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Oh, we have one public. No? Sorry, did you want to say? Oh, right, go ahead.
I just want to speak to tuition. As somebody who's family here with 6th generation, and we think about this upstate downstate coalition, right? Upstate is trying to keep up. That's all. A lot of these things, New York City already has. Maybe, there was a time, even on this council, that people served and were under rent control apartments in New York City, but owns half houses in Hudson. Right? A lot of these rules and these laws we don't have. So we're trying to support a concept like where, hey, we just want local control. That's what you want, local control. It's not the state. I know you speak about the budget like the process, if we talk one-on-one, like it'll be in committee, right? And then June 28th, the speaker, the assembly, the Senate majority leader and the governor agrees on whatever it is. It goes into a process called the Big Ugly, right? And then it passes. And then we all learn about it at the same day. I'm just giving you one-on-one for somebody who works in the legislature. Okay, to your point, I'm speaking as the table lead for the Electoral Justice Project or the Movement for Black Lives. That is a categorically untrue. I will show you my phone, show you the signal chats with the leadership of Movement for Black Lives as it pertains to ties. It's not true.
Okay, and we don't have to go further into that either. Anybody else? Yes, you go.
Why do you use Signal to chat with the head of the Ties Foundation? I did not know no ties. Let me finish my question. I don't have no ties. I thought Signal was the app.
You go, you go. You address the council, not another person.
Sure. I thought Exeter used the Signal app because it deletes evidence when they attack someone in the East. Why don't you email with her?
Yeah, actually, why don't they email?
Huh?
Because I'll send you what I found and you can tell me.
Well, because I know. I sit on the board, so I know that's not true. Our money comes through tithes. So if you're saying we're having a lawsuit with child, it's not true. I'm telling you it's not true. Now, hold on. If you all want to get on a call with the executive director for the Movement for Black Lives, I can make that happen. And then she can tell you to your face, either him or our others, or you can get on with all the people. We sit there. We actively sit at that table. Hudson Casco Housing Coalition actively sits at the table. It's not true.
How about if we email and CC that person and like.
We don't need to get on that. We can get on a call with Zoom. Everybody can be on it with the leadership. No, we don't need the email. They can tell you to your face. It's not true. It's not true. But we on the call, it's not true. It's not true. Categorically false.
Okay. With that, we can move on.
Lord.
Lloyd,
Go
ahead.
I so appreciate you. So this is,
You're never fully neutral.
thank you. So soon you'll be feeding me Italian meals.
Not
So there are a lot of moving parts to this whole housing thing. And, you know, and in theory, I support what they're talking about, local, but I talk to a lot of people, and the whole thing about being priced out of Hudson is a very real thing. It's, you know, and it's not just the landlord, but the taxes and the reassessments, the New York equalization law forces people that have, you know, properties, they're not realizing gains, they're not selling their properties, like 5%, maybe 50 people a year sell some properties. And, you know, the market value goes up. Now, everyone else in the town, in the city, that gets reassessed, their taxes go up. This is what happens in realistically. So this is, a you know, an aspect, but if you don't address this other part of the problem, and I don't know what the answer is.
Okay.
I actually don't know what the answer is. I mean, what can we do to New York State? Get rid of the equalization law? I mean, just being forced to reassess values where you have unrealized gains is just wonderful to the property owners.
But you're right that it's a state issue.
It's a state issue.
We can't solve it here.
Unless we sue them. You know, get together a bunch of cities.
Would you like to find out, son?
Well, maybe there's a coalition, maybe Clinton can help with us. You know,
You know, you sit in front of the hierarchy, I respect that. So, I get it.
One last thing, Brian.
They said, maybe they said yes, they would absolutely contact, correspond with you through, email. So I will get you their email.
Okay,
Thank you.
next resolution. Resolution to accept donations on behalf of the Hudson Fire Department. Can I have the introduction in a second? What is this? Jennifer and Tricia. Okay, now we are to the, let's get an introduction in a second first. The resolution in support of the Access to Representation Act and building. Introduction.
Is the immigration representation?
Yes.
Okay, introduce.
Can I have an introduction in a second?
I'll introduce.
I'm sorry, what?
I'll introduce.
Okay, and a second? Roland? Okay.
So can we go back to my
Yes, we
question?
can, definitely.
The bottom line,
Oh, here you are.
so bottom line, I'm just trying to understand how this strengthens or modifies what's currently on the books. That's where.
Yeah, so, so this would ensure the right to counsel for eligible, income eligible folks in certain deportation proceedings. And, you know, your question about, I think you had a question about, the currently existing law. So there is pilot programs that do exist.
Right.
I think the one, what did you refer to, the family,
It's the
family
New York Immigrant Family Unity Project.
Yeah, so that's an initiative that was started, I believe, in 2013, and that was an initiative to pilot a public defenders program specifically for immigration court, because unlike criminal court where you have access to a public defender, in immigration court, you do not have that access. So there was a pilot program which you're referencing, and that is just a program that sort of experimented with this idea of providing universal representation for folks in immigration proceedings. And that was a program that, showcased how it's been successful. I think there's actual, more details in the actual bill of.
No, I looked it up, I read it.
Yeah, so essentially this, that was just a pilot program.
Okay,
So really what this bill would do now is take it to a state.
so it's
level.
it's codifying what was previously a pilot.
Yes,
And that was,
modifying, and
yeah.
it is also, like you said, kind of strengthening and also bringing it to a statewide level. So essentially making that program, recreating it, but on a statewide level, instead of it being a one-off pilot program.
And the representation in, for certain immigration proceedings, would that be a team of immigration lawyers located within public defender's offices, or would it be something different?
Yes, this is where I'm not specifically read up on that specific point, but the understanding is that there would be essentially a public defender system, but for immigration attorneys, yes.
Okay, all
And
right.
then there's other, bills out there that would complement the Accessible Representation Act, increasing funding and increasing certain programming initiatives like programs that would increase access for folks to be able to become Department of Justice accredited representatives,
Right.
where they would essentially be able to function as immigration attorneys without being immigration attorneys, but they would just have to be supervised under one. But they can essentially do very similar work, all the work that they do, just under supervision. So that would increase the accessibility for folks to be able to actually access an attorney.
And its current status, is it in committee at the moment, or
It is.
is still in committee?
It is in committee at the moment, so right now, there's organizations from across the state, including CCSM, and that are pushing for this bill to move out of committee, but right now, there's been a failure to act on the legislature's end, and a failure to act specifically when it comes to protecting immigrant communities. I mean, I don't think I have to speak specifically to the, just the awful things that we've been seeing happening to community members, not just here in Hudson, but from across the river in Catskill, Greene County and beyond, even in Kingston. And so we believe that this bill, in conjunction with all the other resolutions, for New York for All and for, access to representation, dignity, not detention, these will sort of fortify and strengthen, protections for immigrants and create some that previously don't exist. And I don't think we've introduced New York for All yet, but I'll be excited to share a little bit more about that.
Thank you very much. Anyone else like to comment or question? Okay, moving on to the next resolution. Approving the amended firefighter listing pursuant to the Services Award Program. Someone was left off and they're just putting them on. Can I have an introduction in a second? Ron and? And the next resolution approves the contract that we worked on the last month or so with Big Towel. Big Towel Spa. Can I have an introduction in a second, please? Ron and Gary. Any questions or comments? Okay, moving right along. Approving a license agreement with the Hudson Athens Lighthouse. Jennifer and come on. The next resolution approves the sale that has been working on for part of Montgomery Street. Introduction secondly, Jennifer. And yeah. The next resolution is one referred to by Officer Piro regarding the shared service for the reporting. Ron and Jennifer. The next resolution raises the meter rates in the short-term municipal lots. I'll let Jen, well, first let's have an introduction second. And Trisha. And I'll let Jen explain the logic here.
It's been a while since we've raised the rates in the municipal one. And we also have some of the lowest rates for parking in all of the Hudson Valley. We would like to, we've purchased already 16 kiosks and we'd like to see them work. So what we're gonna do is program them with the new fees and put them in the lots just as a test program for the beginning of the rollout.
Okay, thank you. The next resolution is an ADA, an ADA compliance contract with Frank Vosberg for to begin fixing intersections. A number of intersections that are listed. The sidewalks, can I have an introduction and second? Rhoda and Tricia. Gary, do you want to add any?
Yeah, I'll just give you a little background on this. This is our next phase of bringing the city into ADA compliance. It is a section of the city that had been identified by the Department of Justice last year. Primarily, we're looking at 5th, 6th, and 7th on 5th Street, where we still have work, and this is all intersection ramps work. 5th and Warren and City Hall Place. And then on 6th and 7th, we're going all the way down to Prison Alley, Columbia Street, Long Alley, Rope Alley. We have, we'll take into account that DPW is doing work on Columbia Street. So we, Public Works Board has approved the recommendations from Crawford and Associates, our project manager, to award this contract to Frank Vosberg and Sons to bring the sections that I mentioned into ADA compliance. The project manager had sent out a bid request for this work and received 5 responses. Now, we've used Frank Vosberg specifically for this project before. They're reputable. They meet all the criteria. Their total cost was $241,550. The next lowest bid came in at $353,975. So they certainly are the lowest and most, and that indicates the most motivated contractor. The money has been set aside, is in the SID account, and reviewing this with the treasurer, public works commissioner, and common council president, all recommended that we move forward with this project in its entirety. We had shaped the bids so that we had flexibility. We had a base bid, and then we had a number of alternatives on top of that. And we wanted to see what the cost was going to be, whether we could take it all on this year. And all of the principals noted feel that we can. So that's the, we're asking common council to approve this contract with Frank Vosberg.
Thank you.
Is this just for the curb cuts and corners?
Yes.
So how is this gonna affect when the sidewalk actually gets done? Is it, will they have to be redone if they're destroyed or, you know, try to match the sidewalks to the curbs?
No, these are just the intersections, and it's similar to what we're seeing by Lucy's down at Lower Ward, Warren, where they're working on the intersections, creating the ramps, that portion, and then it'll be backed in, if you will, by our work.
What was in Lower Warren? They're also doing sidewalks because of the, aren't they doing sidewalks in tandem?
No.
No? I thought they were doing the sidewalk.
No, and actually, the intersection ramps were identified as a priority by the DOT.
Yeah.
And that's has been our focus to date.
Yeah. Well, the corridor too, right? So it was also the ramps, but also the corridor to government.
To all public buildings.
Right, to all public buildings, right? So that was also part of that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good job.
Thank you. Yes, the sidewalk initiative group, what are they calling, Public Works Board, is doing a fantastic
Oh,
job.
I know.
No, we thank you. Let me just fill you in. I just wanted to focus on the resolution. Yes, the board has, been, I think, doing great work. Me being separate from that. But we have, moved through the process, working with the county, with the city. We've created the database, we being primarily, Crawford and Associates. We've, captured all of the exemptions, which are firefighters and veterans. We've captured that information from the county process, and we've incorporated into the overall process. So we'll pick up that information from the county database. And we've also working through the process of, accepting applications for credit for prior work, reviewing that work. And we're now responding to those applications with approved, denied, we need more information. So, that's moving, ahead nicely and will be certainly within the time frame of getting the final information, to, the city and the county.
How does somebody send or submit a credit request?
Well, that's a good question. We had three different options. So you could walk it in, you could email it. We had a separate email for that, and we incorporated Hudson Hubs. And I'm told that the applications we received through Hudson Hubs, reflect the most amount of activity in Hudson Hubs itself. So there's a tool that was in place and it's working very
They
nicely.
need to actually, to put it into the.
Yeah.
And I got my letter today, so,
Do you approve?
Yeah, approved.
and my paperwork.
Okay, thank you, Gary.
Thank you.
The last resolution is yet another, one related to Meridian's, group. It is a resolution in support of New York for All Act. Can I have an introduction in a second?
New York for all.
Yes,
What?
what?
You skipped it earlier in our.
Oh, was it you just done?
Yeah.
Well, okay, I'm not gonna explain why that happened, but
You do a report?
New York for All. Where is it in that list?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, let me see. Somewhere. New York for All. Ah, there it is. Sorry. This was Lyra's first time setting it up, and it kind of got lost. Anyway, can I have an introduction in a second? Madam Chair, and then, Tricia. Any discussion or questions for a reading? Public? Anyone? Yes, Mr. Ferris.
Joe Ferris, Fifth Ward. I just want to say I urge the council to support this legislation. It's critical. It's also similar to the law that was passed by the city. And as we know, not every community around here has those laws. So if an immigrant resident here goes to Kane County, they are no longer safe potentially. And additionally, there's knockdown effects because even though immigrant parents might not be able to apply for SNAP, they'll feel comfortable to apply for their children who are citizens and are eligible. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi. Good evening. My name is Elena Simon. I'm a community organizer of the Sanctuary Movement. And I'm here today to urge the council to pass New York for All. So New York for All is, New York for All is critical legislation. So right now, as you all know, immigrant communities are under attack. And so New York for All would stop the collusion of local law enforcement with ICE agencies. So right now what we're seeing is that local law enforcement are being deputized as ICE agents by way of 287G agreements. So what the New York for All bill would do is stop local law enforcement from entering into those agreements with ICE. And this is a critical piece of legislation because it's really
public safety is at right now, right? Because with New York for All, there is nothing stopping local agencies, hospitals, schools from providing information to ICE. So the community is in fear. So that means if someone is experiencing a domestic violence situation, they won't go report it. If someone has a medical issue, they won't go to the hospital in fear that someone may ask about their immigration status, right? So there's different implications that comes from, right, local law enforcement colluding with ICE. If ICE needs to, whatever ICE needs to do, they have their funding, and the funding of local communities should not be going to the work of the federal government. So it's really important to really pass this resolution and really protect our communities and protect the integrity of what our communities stand for.
And Carrie, yes, Iridium.
Yeah, so I can share a little bit more generally about, New York for All, just so that the city knows, you know, and that Duane, my colleague, shared, you know, some of the reasons, and it would essentially prohibit, state, agencies, including local and state law enforcement from, as Duane mentioned, colluding with immigrations and customs enforcement via information, the sharing of sensitive information, or doing the bidding of immigrations and customs enforcement via law enforcement avenues. So as someone had mentioned previously, right, there is sort of a distrust that is going on within the immigrant community and law enforcement. We believe that law enforcement is here of our communities, regardless of where they come from, regardless of their ethnicity, race, gender, etc., of their immigration status. It is not their business to be asking people if they are a citizen or if they are in immigration proceedings, because not all non-citizens are just undocumented. Some of them have some kind of visa, some of them are permanent residents, which unfortunately we've even seen certain cases where some of these folks have been deported wrongfully. And so we believe that law enforcement should be focused on protecting their community regardless of their, the immigration status of people. And by law enforcement, which is what Duane was alluding to, these 287G agreements, there's currently an agreement in Rensselaer County that they've had that agreement actually for many years now. But that amount of agreements have increased to now 4 agreements statewide. And we know that the federal Trump administration is pushing, local counties and sheriff's offices to increase the amount of these 287G agreements, which would deputize their law enforcement to act as ICE agents. And as I mentioned, doing the bidding of ICE. They wouldn't be just there to respond to a call of domestic violence. They would maybe respond to that and also ask these folks, have the ability to ask if they are citizens or not of this country, and then potentially further escalate that. We also know that ICE also preys on folks that don't know their rights. And they, we've seen that they even violate the rights of folks that are choosing to exercise their rights, because we know that everybody in this country, regardless of their, immigration status, has some basic constitutional rights that are offered to them. So, one of the things that the provisions that this law would do is make it so that if folks were to be detained, ICE would have the obligation to let folks know of their rights, which currently they do not do. For example, law enforcement, if you're pulled over, you're, read your rights, that doesn't exist when it comes to ICE and detaining folks. So yeah, as you mentioned, I think it would be, we would love for this council to support and encourage this council to support all these resolutions, especially New York for All, and sort of make it known, and then I think fortify the stance of this city that, we are protecting immigrants, we welcome immigrants, we protect our community. And, this is something that I think our legislature, our state leaders has to also see. They have to see that local city councils are also, in support of these resolutions and these sorts of bills that we want to push forth. So, thank you all so much for introducing this resolution, and yeah, we hope to see it passed later this month.
Thank you. Okay, we were putting a local on our desk, It's the, accessory dwelling unit law. And that's it for tonight's business. Is there any?
What about the ADU law?
That's what I said.
ADU, I can't hear you what you're
No.
saying.
You probably should bring it here. It's the ADU law. I mean,
Are we going to discuss that?
well, we could discuss it, but we're just putting on the table, sure.
Right, I just wanted to give people some background because we'll be voting on it next week.
No, we won't be voting on it. It doesn't happen that quick. But, okay, go ahead.
Well, hopefully we'll be voting it on soon. So the intent of this, and the urgency of it is that there potentially will be additional funding through an agency called RUPCO, which would enable residents of Hudson to apply for funding or grants through that funding stream to build accessory dwelling units. So this focuses primarily on residents. In order for our residents to participate, we have to have something in our code that specifically allows people to have ADUs. So at the moment in Hudson, there are a lot of people who do have accessory dwelling units in their carriage houses, or they'll go through zoning board and so forth. They will fund it themselves and do whatever. So there are ways to do it, but there's nothing in our code that explicitly says you can have an ADU on your lot. So that's the whole purpose of this law. We did talk quite a bit about whether or not there should be a residency requirement, and that is more complicated than we realized when Crystal looked into it. So right now it has a requirement. Again, we're trying to emphasize that this is for residents, that at the time that you do your ADU and get your certificate of occupancy, you have to reside in either in the primary property or the accessory unit, and you must do so for 1 year from the date of COO. So that's basically what it is. If any of you have any questions, legal went through it. You can just email us if you have any questions about it.
Thank you. Hold on, Lloyd. Something I forgot to mention. Last meeting, we discussed this potential property switch, property.
The small piece of land.
Yes. A lot of you said you're gonna go check it out. I'm wondering if you want to move forward with this, or what the. You don't have to make a final decision now, but let me know, how you feel about it. It is a very hard piece of land. It is a very hard piece of land. I'm sorry, Jennifer. So you're happy with making the change? I mean, I understand why they want to make it.
I mean, we can, I think we can. About this law, though, I have.
Okay, hold on one second. I just want to get back to the thing. So basically, I should have Crystal move ahead with process.
How much we're getting out of this?
I believe, what was it, Crystal, around $10,000? Yeah.
Can we
It's two very small pieces of land.
Can we negotiate?
Well, I tried.
Let's just try again.
Yeah.
You know, okay, so I think we should negotiate a little bit, and we should move ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now,
What's the ADU,
Yes.
what's the legal committees and all that?
Yes.
That's the conversation.
Right.
And what, in a few meetings prior to that, the legal, I did speak and it was totally twisted. And what I wanted to say is that in order to keep the neighborhood character, it's very important to have the entrance of the ADU in the back or side. Because if you have a nice, beautiful historic building and next to it you have, you know, and in the front, the ADU, it may look bad.
So there is language in here, which you and I discussed, Crystal. No, hang on, Crystal, when I discussed this with Vicky, the language that you have, that it cannot change the appearance from the street. Vicky was hoping that that could be more clear and exact as to the ADU having to be on the side or the rear. So that was one piece. I don't know how you feel about that.
And that's fine. I do think that needs to be specifically spelled out in the law if that's what's going to be required, that it's only going to be allowed in the side and the rear yard.
Yes, and I think that was Vicky's point when we discussed this before, and when I looked at I think it's element G, where you have alteration to the principal accommodation shall be designed to retain its exterior appearance as a single-family dwelling as viewed from the street. But that, as Vicky pointed out, that's not really explicit enough to address the side and rear issue.
That doesn't address it at all. It would need to be we would need to add language in that, which is not a problem.
So I said, like, if the property has no option, just one, so what they're gonna do?
Say again?
If the property has no option for, the side or second.
But they have to have some space to put the ADU. What scenario are you thinking of?
No, okay.
I mean, they have to have something in the back.
Hmm.
This is just like you can't build an ADU in front of your house. Which is probably not gonna.
Okay, any new business that you'd like to mention? County first. Public.
You don't need you.
Well, you can talk about that too.
I don't need to.
What's that?
There.
Public. Yeah, I can say. Thank you.
Okay, I'll start us out. Hi, my name's Jack. I live on Mill Street. This is my first common council meeting, and you handle a lot, and I'm very grateful for your service to the city. The Mill Street Lost Project, just to tell you the details so that's fresh in your mind, it's 70 units, 100+ people on a dead-end street that floods frequently. We've been neighbors of mine, myself, we've been appearing in front of the planning board, making our case to resize and rescale the project for our neighborhood so that it fits, so that it makes sense, so that it preserves community character, et cetera, et cetera. We'll be there tomorrow. We're gonna keep doing that. But I'm here to tell you about a common council related issue.
Isn't it Wednesday?
The planning board meeting is tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
Unless they.
Yes.
Oh, sorry, okay.
There's a planning board.
Tomorrow, 6:30.
So all those details aside, property specific, planning specific things, I'm not here to talk about that. I want to raise an issue that as this project moves forward to being development ready, that is a common council issue. So it's an issue of parkland alienation, the deed restriction that is in the deed of this property. The law on this,
I have to stop you right there. It's been settled.
it's not been settled on. There's
By our attorney, by the mayor's attorney, I mean, the city council.
I'd like to just finish my comment and then.
Yeah, sure, you can finish it. I'm just telling you, you're pursuing a dead end, but go ahead.
Well, it's not a dead end. I'll tell you why. So
Mill Street is a dead end.
Milton.
Well, place longer.
The law on this issue is 100+ years old. It's created by courts. It's not a statute. We can't look and check the box to see exactly what details matter and what don't matter. And you can read a series of court decisions to sort of figure it out, but I'm going to tell you what they say. So the rule is this: when the municipality owns land that is used as a park or waterfront or public recreation or open space, anything like that, it cannot sell or develop that property for non-park uses without an act of the state legislature. This is called the public trust doctrine. It goes back to Roman laws, an ancient idea that the public, when they are afforded the opportunity to recreate and use open space or use waterfronts, then they have a right to that space that is protected by the New York State legislature.
I've heard that once it's declared recreational space, then it has to go to state for approval to be verified.
That's correct. So in this case, the deed from the city school district to the city, June of 1983. The context of that deed is that the Hudson Men's Softball League was playing softball on that field. The field has historically been the playground for the Charles Williams School. And when the school district transferred the property to the city, undoubtedly they understood that it was going to be used for softball and would continue to be used for softball. So they wrote in the deed that the property was to be used for only open space and recreational purposes. Right, so that's the first dedication of parkland, 1983. And in the last 40 years, every municipal plan that has come through this body and from nonprofit organizations commenting on open space or what should and shouldn't happen in the city of Hudson refers to this parcel as parkland, open space, and recreation. And I have 10+ documents about this. I'll be happy to share everything that I've done research on this with you all afterwards, but I'm just here to tell you that this is an issue for the Common Council to address. because there has been no resolution to alienate this property from parkland status. As far as I know, there's been no communication with our state representatives about this issue. And it's an important issue because one, we don't, just as a matter of good governance, we don't want to ditch parkland. And two, because I understand there's been parcels in this city that have been privatized and then subsequent administrations and councils regret that decision. And this is a means of protecting the public's interest in open space. So I'd love to share this evidence with you. I'd love to share what I've found. I'm happy to answer questions. I don't know what the right procedure is for any of this. Like I said, this is my first meeting, but I'm very glad for your attention to this issue and I'm glad to follow up with anything in risk.
Send us our information. We'll look at it and let you know. As I said to you, the city attorney, council, corporate counsel has already opined on this. I'm not saying it's definitive or not, but I'd be happy to pass all your information along to him and see what he thinks. Because I think some of it's in depth.
All of our emails are on the city website.
Okay.
It's typically first name, last name, @cityofhudson.org.
Yeah.
And I
Okay.
think you can share,
Yeah, you can get them all.
share that with all of us, that would be
Everything
great.
I always send it to me and the council.
So I think it's fine if you send it to all of us.
I want to make sure everybody gets it.
Jack, in your research, did you research that when the state gave the grant for the repairs and everything, was there any stipulations when?
No.
Fantastic question.
Yes, Jack, and you've been researching,
Yes, I did. In fact, I happen to know.
but I asked Jack.
Maybe I'll give my answer, then you can give your answer. So the city submitted, and I believe Quentin was part of this process. I saw your email, I read some documents. Okay, so the city submitted a grant application to New York State Parks and Recreation for money to develop the north side of the street as Charles Williams Park, right? Which it now is. There's a playground, a pavilion, and there's a sign, and we all think of that as Charles Williams Park. In the grant application, the city, sort of a matching grant situation, right? So the city had to put something into it. So what they said was, we will use the property on the north side of the street. The value of that property is X, 300,000 or something. And we will dedicate that as a park, take it from the police department, which use it as a shooting range. So we'll give that land into park status if we get $300,000 in grant money to build the park infrastructure. Great, that was the bargain. In that grant application, the map that shows the entire area of Mill Street and the desired improvements and use of Mill Street show the southern half, which is the development proposal lot, as a softball field, as open space and recreation, and refers to that in the application as Charles Williams Park, the south side. Because the south side of the street is Charles Williams Park. It's the park that serves the Charles Williams School since 100 years or so. So the city put that property forward and they said, this is the park. We intend to expand the park onto the north side of the street, and we're asking for state money to do that. The application was in 2006. The money was awarded. The improvements began in 2009 and beyond. I'll follow up on that when CLC, Columbia Land Conservancy, drafted its North Bay Recreation Area Plan, they referred to both sides of the street and they referred to the north side of the street as the expansion of Charles Williams Park. So the understanding in the mid-2000s was that the south side was the park, and that the city would need to dedicate the north side in order to receive the grant money to build the park infrastructure, but that both sides of the street were parked and would be parked after the grant.
You're correct, but there's one problem. The city never dedicated the southern side. That has to be formally done and it never was done.
And that's where you're wrong, because there are two cases to this point. One is Capruso v. Kings Point, and the other is City of Peekskill v. Riverview Partners.
Okay.
And they demonstrate the concept that through a record of city behavior and public behavior, one can demonstrate that parkland is protected parkland. And that's
dedicated.
That is the dedication. It's an
Now,
implied
dedication has to be done to the state, and it was never done. Okay, if you can demonstrate that that's wrong, I'm open to that. Sure.
That's my analysis. I will send you my evidence. The city for 40 years has shown this parcel as an apartment. And we all know someone who has played softball, soccer, frisbee, or cricket on that field. And we all intuitively know that that property is a park. I'm not saying this because that will defeat this development, which I oppose. I'm saying that because the city needs to take a step to engage the state legislature to release this property to avoid liability of barreling forward with what I think is a reckless development, and to just uphold its commitment to the public, which it made 4 years ago by accepting and facilitating this property as.
Thank you, John.
That's 7 to 9 or. You know what I'm talking about, I do my research, babe.
But on Second Street, years ago, the city took by eminent domain across the street from the Kelsey family. They took that hill by eminent domain. Then the city turned around and sold it, tore down all the houses that were there, and then turned around and sold it. That happened, I don't know how long ago, the Kelsey family has been married for 56 years, I think. They've lived in that area for over 70 years, but they've seen the changes and it was really devastating to them. But I think that's what you're
I
talking
did my
about.
analysis, I've seen, or the analysis, the O&M and development is at the planning board. They own a number of properties, and I think there's 2 lots south of Mill Street there.
Okay.
I mean, we can do further research.
Okay.
I think.
Tom, wait. One time. Button's next.
You know, like, research. I also want to know that the city take half of that plan and move it to Fifth Street, so all of the things that you're talking about shows that there can be changed. Because the park and what we designed down there, half of it was moved by the next administration to Oakdale, like the skateboard park and things of that nature. So it shows that change can occur. But I want to speak to just that issue. I want to speak to you, the one, right? Isn't it hard being over the second ward, social work, right? Going, people need different things than what other wards need. You know how hard it is to get housing? And that, because I used to be the second ward, right? You know what it took for people like Ed Cross and myself and Lyle Shook to get the city to invest and say, hey, we want those parcels for Habitat for Humanity. You know how hard it was for 2 other places on the, if you go back in history, 2003, 2004, look up Kristen Edwick, where a couple of those houses, maybe where you live, would not have existed. We took them in foreclosure, right? And the city gave them back just for basic things, which means for most of the time, the city and its residents held the weight of that area, right? And poor people, for the most part, from the second ward said we wanted to do something down there. And many of the people who live there right now got there on the backs of poor people. So now when people need housing, show up. You can't say not in my backyard. You didn't pay market rate. You didn't do it on your own. You did it with help. Right? Let's be honest. You did it with help. You did it with help from the state government, the federal government, and the local government. Now you have to come in and say, no, we don't want these other people over here. Absolutely not. That is not in the world that we live in. Or tell me we are. Tell the community that's the city that we want, and I'm cool with that. We know where we stand. I'm speaking my truth. I was here, I voted for it. I made it happen. No, yeah, Jesus is because it's the truth, right? I'm still speaking. I'm still speaking. Listen, most of them were. The Habitat for Humanity definitely was given to the city. I voted on it. I advocated for it. Wasn't there before it, right? And there's about 2 or 3 others that were taken in foreclosure. Look at 2003 or 2004, Chris Neville was the chair of the committee that did the foreclosure. You can look also on the interesting note on that. There were some people who served on the city council, some people who worked over the county, who also put in bids for some of that property and said they were going to do things for the public and then sold them for a benefit. Sarah Sterling, her daughter. I know history. I never forget. That is the truth. All I'm asking for you is to just look and take it. Yeah, I know it's hard. Somebody come in and he knows the facts, and it's. But we're at a moment in time. As I close, let me just close into something. We're at this moment where some places like the sanctuary movement come in and show up, right? Most of these resolutions coming up in front of you is going to state law. Y'all act like y'all legislators. We gonna be bargaining, you gonna be next. Me, black queen, pure, well, excuse me, queer, queen cross gonna be next. Right, so when they come in, right, when that sanctuary movement come in and ask for support, let's be honest. Trump trying to take us out, they're grabbing people off the street, they're grabbing elected officials. Right, so when they come in, they should be like, how can we support you? Because all you're doing is saying, listen, governor, listen, legislator, we're just looking at you. We want to make sure you're doing the right thing. That's the way you hold. Know who's not going to be affected by it? The 49 that just came from South Africa. That's who not going to be affected by it. And the rest of them coming out. But blacks and browns and all these folks are being dragged off the street. But the 49 can sit here and talk about the movement for Black Lives Matter. Stop it. Enough.
Okay.
Good night.
About the interview.
Did you want to discuss that?
Yeah, actually, follow and, I'm not speaking, my husband Jack is, but I'm in St. Gilbert, I was in Hudson for 12 years. 11 as farm business owner and a renter in second ward, now resident of Mill Street, fourth ward. I just wanted to thank Jenny for bringing a question that I really appreciated earlier today, and to generally share an action item I'd like to see on the Mill Street development. I understand it's from the planning board, detailed discussion of the points of that project should take place there. One of the critical flaws I see in this project is I really don't see the connective tissue that's gonna house a project of this size in a reasonable or responsible way. Sidewalks come to mind. There's no sidewalks on the connecting streets to Mill Street or on Main Street itself. Lack of on-street parking. There are 0 legal parking spaces on the street because the width, 20 feet wide, most streets 17 at the nearest pinch point. There's potential park redevelopment plan at the end of the street. That park has an event pavilion, but also has no designated parking spaces. And the flooding issue, as Jenny noted in her brief comment on that, there are studies being done, but the developer, their job is to worry about their lot lines, right? It's a reasonable position. They can make sure that there's no more water coming in out of that lot than comes in, and at no greater speed, but they can't address the underlying conditions. So I really believe that addressing these underlying conditions, the fact that Mill Street was never set up for this density of development, more than six-fold increase in number of residences, that has to be addressed by the common council. And I really, what comes to mind is, mistakes I've sort of started out to make in my life, thinking that you could buy a house at auction and not have a budget for repairs, or buy a cheap car on Craigslist and expect you're gonna get to work with it the next day. It's like there's these critical wraparound costs that I have yet to hear really acknowledged or addressed by anybody of city government. And I would like to see meaningful numbers attached to those things, like extending sidewalks down to Mill Street, of serious consideration of the upstream and downstream effects of flooding, not just on the lot itself. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Jay.
Hold on. Let me correct it. Mill Street on the second ward. I think it's the fourth ward.
Yes, I previously lived in the second ward.
Oh, okay.
The renter. No, I'm a resident of Mill Street in the fourth ward.
Well, hold on a second. While Jack's argument is a matter for the common council, all the things you're raising are really a matter for the planning board. We cannot opine about these.
Sorry, but. So at the last planning board meeting that I was at about Mill Street, Teresa Joyner said that the city would have to mitigate the water. And it was going to be our problem to mitigate. That's why I asked Rob tonight, what would you have to do and how much will it cost?
One at a time.
Because I've heard similar things from everyone I've spoken to in government, is that maybe there is no excellent structure for holding these kinds of larger city planning questions. I've heard lack of city planning come up as a major criticism of the city, and it makes us vulnerable to things like, desire for city manager and overhaul of city government. There's lots of sort of fabric of the city questions that come up in this. And
if we cannot answer those questions, we have no business as a city taking on developments of this size. Yeah. Right?
Right, Don.
So you're currently in a flood zone. So I'm assuming that your insurance is very high for a flood zone. Isn't this gonna increase your insurance costs if there's gonna be more potential of flooding on your side?
That is a concern I've heard from many of my neighbors, yes.
But first of all, the project is not completely in a flood zone.
I thought we weren't talking details, Don.
I'm just correcting what he said.
I just asked.
We're not talking-
It was a general.
Yeah, I understand, but you know, first of all, your questions, I'm answering it. Because she may not know.
But she.
Because if you're not the planning board, no.
My neighbor Joel Funk just told me about his flood insurance costs and his, that's a major concern is in this.
But you do know that it's not completely in a flood zone, right?
Tell them either it's an issue for the planning board or it's not.
Okay, you're right.
Yeah, I would be delighted to opine on the flood issues of Mill Street if you'd like to. open that dialogue.
I withdraw my comment.
Yeah,
I'm just trying to correct Dominic, not you.
Let me point out, since you asked, let me point out that the developer's study of the floodwaters on this project noted a couple things that were distinctly out of their jurisdiction. They are not interested in solving those problems on behalf of the city. They suggest the city look into them. Two of them are grossly undersized culverts upstream and downstream of the development parcel. Another is the fact that the intersection regularly floods. That is simply not their problem. They suggest that we look into turning the Dugway into a vehicle access route, which of course would make a lot of sense if you're more than, you're increasing the size of the neighborhood by 600%, right? It would make sense that you'd want multiple egress points to and from. So I'm suggesting that the city might be thinking of this as like manifesting wholesale neighborhood redevelopment without taking any responsibility for the critical infrastructure, the connective tissue that allows that to happen in the region.
I see what you're saying. Now, I don't quite understand your point, but now I do.
I'm asking for a subcommittee or I'm not sure what the means are. I'd be happy to think about them, come back to you with more concrete idea.
And any member of the council is also welcome to do the same work, but it's up to them to do the work. Lloyd?
Isn't there an impending comprehensive plan in the?
Yes, there is.
So will that first these issues?
It does to a certain degree, yes. But you'll see soon. It's almost ready.
Wonderful.
Peter?
Yeah, I was curious if the comprehensive plan has been shared with the planning board.
It will be.
Will it impact the waterfront?
Impact. That's a good question. Are you talking about the Palouse Hall Road? I mean, dock?
Yeah.
Question?
Yeah. Because I know the deadlines are they're very close.
Yeah.
I imagine that whatever is in the updated comprehensive plan might impact the deliberations of the planning board on additional.
I don't think it will. But I can't. Oh, the mayor, I guess. Yes, you go.
To the council, I have had the Wall Street Park issues evaluated by the best public land attorney in Massachusetts and in New York. And they told me definitively that it would not survive an Article 78 challenge. I am now in touch with folks who have taken the liberty to have one drafted and have it filed at the correct time. I, of course, have no active hand in that funding at all. But as a taxpayer with high taxes in the city of Hudson, thanks to the mayor and the common council president and others, I'm concerned that city resources will be wasted in a preventable mistake. And I'm concerned that families like these guys who literally build their own homes are being shortchanged for some larger agenda that is not well thought through. And I think it's really unbecoming, and it will not make it past this council thanks to the New York courts. And I want us to save money and I want us to save time. And I urge all of you guys who are not fully read up on this to please not waste our time on this, because I'm also doing an end run for a housing run before the election. Thank you very much, and yield my time. Sure, you have something to say?
No.
Okay.
Listening.
Anyone else?
Yeah.
Motion to adjourn.
Adjourn.
Oh, that's okay.
Well, I got. No, I got. So I dropped it off on this county. I didn't even want to keep it.
Oh, I'm gonna be preparing.
That's